Goodness gracious, gravy and whiskers. Today we're going to be checking out the Arturia PolyBrute. The PolyBrute is Arturia's polyphonic synthesizer that you've been asking for years. What it is not, though, is a polyphonic matrix brute. Even though it looks a bit like the matrix brute and certainly inherits some of the characteristics and elements, it's not. It's completely revoiced, and it does things that the matrix brute does not do. Not just polyphony, but morphing. The morphing concept in PolyBrute is one of its most insane unique features and is not present in any other analog polyphonic synthesizer ever, as far as I'm aware. And what morphing means is that you have a sound, A, let's call it, but you can have another sound, B, and you can morph between the two as part of a patch. That means that all of the parameters that can be morphed smoothly move themselves into the other position. And you can mutate, create a hybrid, a baby between them, various babies depending on where the knob is. And that's something that perhaps in the digital world could be feasible, but in the analog world is an absolute pig to create. And so the engineering that has gone into the PolyBrute is fairly next level. This is the absolute pinnacle of what Arturia have done with synthesizers. And although I much prefer to show rather than tell, I will say I do think this thing sounds absolutely stormingly good. And so to walk thee through the features, let's just make a sound together. We aren't going to cover everything. There are 2 oscillators. Here's one. There's the second. 6 voices, by the way. So 2 oscillators with a sub-oscillator, which is always an octave down. Now, the way that the sort of mixers work here is you've basically got 3 waveforms. So this is just VCO1. So on one side, it's a nice triangle. On the other, it's a saw, good for the buzzy business. So in this way, you can blend all 3 together if you do that. Or you can just have just the square, or just this. Now. Oh yeah. So nice. The wavefolding is just like, this sounds wonderful. And settings. And I can change whether I can wavefold just the triangle as I was doing, or all of them. Let's say all of them. So now if I move back to saw, I can wavefold the saw as well. I think you can wavefold the square, but kind of, yeah, makes everything go zing. So you begin to build a sound. And I can have a longer envelope, and a bit of vibrato. And then I'm going to leap right ahead to one of the best knobs on this entire machine, stereo spread, which does this. Put your headphones on. You know what that's doing? It's like spreading the stereo of each voice, each note as it comes in. So wicked. So we've got oscillator 1 going on, and of course we've got 2 waveforms, or 2 oscillators, so I'll blend in this second one. Again, we have the sub. Bit of glide. Really lovely. But then there's like this sort of extra stuff like sync. So I can create sync between the oscillators. So 1 syncs to 2. All that stuff. But then, perhaps a little more freakish and exciting is FM. So then that's oscillators modulating the frequency of other oscillators and making crazy sounds. does really beautiful things. We find the right like sweet spot. So nice. That kind of like just right. Nice. Then filters, of which there are two, the Steiner filter and the ladder, which have different characteristics, which you can blend together, which you can run in series. And so it's like two different synthesizers in one, two different characters. So the Steiner first. And now the Steiner is multi-mode, so meaning it can be low pass, band pass, and high pass. Very resonant. Apply the filter to it. Tweak these a little bit. Now this knob controls both of the cutoffs at the same time. So if I do send them into the Steiner, put these in series, actually the ladder is in the path. So I can compound the two filters together and then control them as one. Like that. Well, I can do that in high pass and that one in low pass. Well. Oh, that's nice. Was meant to be an ARP, but nuts. The filters have drive and distortion in varying ways. So if I run these in parallel, that should not be doing anything now. So that's Steiner, high pass. And you have brute factor, which is a kind of feedback loop. Whoa, makes the filter go nuts. But can make it howl, depending all on like many settings, the mixer level, the level out. But it's all been kind of tweaked for this. Oof. You know, as in it's not the Matrix Brute's configuration. All of the settings of these things get tweaked behind a panel to make them fit the voice of a poly better. So then, ladder filter. Now both of the same oscillators go in there, and if I turn up the level, you've got a kind of sweeter, smoother character, which again I can apply the filter to, as the VCF envelope to, that filter. And then you've got distortion. So we can like drive up the filters and make them... Whoa. Make that happen a bit faster. Just to stress, unless I've got something terribly wrong, no effects. There are no effects on this. That's just how damn good it sounds. Made, obviously, even more special by that stereo spread, which is just gorgeous. hairs on my legs stood up. Get in. Yeah, mate, it's... Get a load of that. What's really, really telling about this is how little I modulate the sound and are happy with them. But speaking of modulation, there is actually a quite insane amount of things that you can do. That is a good time to talk about it. 3 LFOs, each of which have lots of detailed things that you can explore with them. And so, by the way, let's actually apply some LFOs. To do that, we go to mods. And this is where we get into the whole mod matrix thing. You've got sources and destinations. And unlike the matrix brute, all of the destinations are definable. And I've got 4 whole pages of them, more hidden behind, but I'll just mess with 1 or 2 here. So say I want to mess with cutoff, and I want it to be the master cutoff that's the, between the two. I would hold 5, which is an empty destination, tweak master cutoff. This instantly updates, says destination 5, master cutoff. And then I find LFO 1, 2, and 3 here. So I'll go LFO 1 and I'll turn up the amount. And that's just like sticking a patch cable. So we go along the corridor and up the stairs. So that's LFO 1. You can change the phase, you can sync it, obviously. By the way, there's that shift thing, the olive gives me the sync settings. It's very, very headphoney. Hold. And then if I want to do the weird matrix stuff, like say I want LFO 2 to control LFO 1, then I can go that LFO 1 rate is now a destination, LFO 2. So now that controls that. Here's something amazing that you can do that I did not realize for a long time. So LFO 2 is controlling LFO 1. But can I control the amount that LFO 2 is controlling LFO 1? Yes, I can. So I hold 7, an empty slot, and I touch the button. Then the amount of this modulation becomes a modulation. So I can use LFO 3 to control how much LFO 2 is sending to LFO 1. That, my friend, is bat scheisse. Because that's when like a polysynth sort of gets into modular territory. This is a kind of modular polysynth. Deep sound design becomes possible. Obviously, also you have 3 envelopes. You've kind of seen me using them. But then effects, which are over here on the right, and a sequencer and an arpeggiator. And the effects are really, really good. These are digital effects. Of course, they've been putting out a bunch of effects plugins recently. So it's some of this stuff that's found its way in. And I think it's the reverb from Pigments. And it just sounds... just sounds awesome. It's like exactly the type of reverb that you want in a polysynth. But actually there's lots of different types. There's a plate as well. Different characteristic. And then there's alt, and there's lots of different things, like springy. Here there's a kind of springy quality to it. I mean, it's not a spring, but it's like a, it kind of goes da-da-da-ding. And then delay, of which there are multiple types as well. The delay says BBD, of course it is digital, but being digital, you get lots more control and longer times. So it can go very long. I'm not sure what the maximum time is, actually. And there is a long delay here. That is long. And then there is a modulation effect, like your choruses and phases and stuff. Flanger, a phaser, a ring mod. Bit crusher. And then a downsampler. Hey. I like those. Soft flanger. Oh, that's nice. Oh, that is nice. So lots and lots of effects, and they become part of the sound. Of course, you can modulate them. You know, you can modulate reverb time and delay time and sort of really unify them as part of the patch. But, you know, I have always found when I've been messing with this that I've baked them in, you know. But, and I'll do this during the video, I'll turn off the effects so you can kind of hear at certain times what the original voice is doing and what the effects are doing. They are like the sweet, sweet cherry on top, but by goodness, if this thing does not have the sound just by itself. But then, Morph. What is Morph? Well, as we start a default sound again, I will get something going on. Let's get some metallization on all the waves. That's nice. Adds that really like sort of like glassy kind of ting. It's very good at doing like, this can do the kind of classy Jupiter thing. They don't all do this. And I played with a lot of polysynths. I actually worked this out when I was making this video. I've played with over 40 analog polysynths in my life. Sign of a misspent youth, or not, depending on your view. So I've made a sound. I don't have any modulation and much else going on, but it's a sound. What about B? Nothing at all is going on. Hear that? Wow. It's really crackers. So basically, B is like a blank slate. It's another sound that I haven't made yet. And so I need to put something in B, and then I can freely morph, because what's happening is it's morphing from the cool Jupiter-y sound to just buzzy McBuzzer Sun. And obviously what I could do is I could just completely build something up from scratch. But there are some clever things you can do. If you go to Morph on the little boutons here, we've got a bunch of little handy utilities that help us work with A and B. One of which is pick B, and then we can pick a sound. So we'll pick this one, which is another preset I made, Brightly Does It. And then that's nice. So that's the B from another patch mixed with the A from the one I'm currently making. And so you can then hybridize the patch you're making with another one. By the way, you can have up to 768 presets stored in this thing, so keep you busy for a while. So you can hear there's that stepping that's going on. You can make it completely smooth and continuous. Again, this is done with the settings of the oscillators. You can choose how the mods, how the oscillators kind of morph from one to the other. There's tons of just madness to explore as you morph. So cool. So like Morph is doing such a cool thing now. So then I can go to mods with more reverb. By the way, because I had Morph in the middle while I was editing reverb, it will affect both A and B with the reverb. So the way it works is that if I have it on fully A, anything I do to the panel doesn't touch B. If I have it on full B, it doesn't touch A. But if you have it anywhere in the middle, it proportionally affects the other sound by the amount which you have it in the middle. Does that make sense? And then you get into Morphee, where you have this kind of XYZ controller, which you can push down and you get an axis of controller, which I don't think is set up to do anything at the moment, but certainly could be. It's here. It's there. And then there's a XY pad, which is capacitive. And the default setup is where it's controlling aspects of morph individually. So the amounts of morphs and then the pitch. So I can move like this from one corner to the other, which does exactly the same thing as the knob, but I could just change the pitch and then the timbrality. Pitch alone, timbrality. Or timbrality alone. So you can kind of, using Morph, you can sort of disassociate, you can disconnect both pitch changes to timbral changes. Crackers. That I think is the kind of killer hook with this, is a level of expressivity. Born from a ribbon, Morphee with 3 axes of control, pitch mod, and then all the modulation possibilities, multiplied by the fact you can modulate modulators as well. You can actually change how things are sent on the matrix with things on the synth. It's crackers. It's going to keep you very busy for a very long time. And then very quickly, something that I have not got hooked up in this video, but is ready and waiting, is the VST Editor. There is a VST Editor thing for the PolyBrute. So when you get one, you can control it completely bidirectionally from a plugin or a standalone thing on your computer. This means that you can use it as a patch librarian, do firmware updates and jazz like that. So 768 patches that are on the machine can be easily moved in and out. But kind of the killer thing is that if you're using this as part of a track, you can pull it in as a VST instrument and it will save everything that's happening in the synth as part of your set, your file. So you can load the thing back up and be exactly where you were. You can just focus on making rad sounds, saving and recalling and recording them. So speaking of rad sounds, shall we mess around with the rad sounds of the PolyBrute? Yes, I think we shall. Or take a fault. just thinking this is all effects making it sound massive, here's no effects. That is dry. Some reverb. Oh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's no effects. Just in case you thought the effects were like making it sound amazing. Nope. Although they do sound great. That's just good old baked in character. Super sweet little like filter zing. It's nice. So nice. Hold. But then the mad thing was when I was messing around with this is filter FM. So VCO2 can modulate the filters like that. So good. Back to A. Oh, yes. That is Ace. Don't need more than that. Here's another one I made, which is the kind of thing I would make if I had the 8. I don't get enough of that stereo spread. Yeah, nice. So we can do a little sequence, hit record, do something like that. Let's turn overdub on the sequencer so I can overdub. Just like on a key step or the key step 37. So of course it's 6 notes per step. So good. Yeah. So then let's go to Morph. So we'll copy A to D, please. Then we can modulate. We can record modulation as part of our sequence. We can have up to, I think, 3 or 4 modulations. Like that. That was quite subtle. So now you can see there is modulation baked into the sequence. Yeah. That is quite off the hook. Wow, that is nuts. That's playing a sequence. There is a sequence in here, so I'm kind of playing chords by playing a sequence. This would pair very well with one of these, I think. Definitely. Chord mode for days. Add some cut off. Darken the delays there. And high pass them as well. Nice.
Ace.